Welcome back to the channel. I'm Colin, and this is the review of the Ziigaat Arete II. As the successor of the original Arete, the Arete II is the second collaboration between Ziigaat and Fresh Reviews. It has the same driver configuration, one dynamic driver, and 4 BAs, and it retails for $249. Personally, I am really excited about the all-new aluminum shells on the Arete II. I hope this will be a trend in their IEMs moving forward. Let's unbox the Arete II first, and we'll talk more about it. Here are the IEMs themselves. I have mine in red. They also come in blue. In fact, it would be very cool if Ziigaat made a version with a red IEM on the right side and blue IEM on the left side. It's kind of a missed opportunity that they didn't release it that way, but let's see if it would be done in the future. If there are enough people talking about it, I think they might consider it. In my opinion, there are two important upgrades on this Ziigaat. First is the full aluminum shells. It's anodized and has a high gloss finish. I think this is the first ever Ziigaat that has a metal shell. It feels much more premium than the traditional 3D printed shells Ziigaat uses. I really hope metal shells is the direction they are heading for their future releases. Second is the adjustable bass switch. It adds a couple of decibels of bass in the sub-bass and mid-bass area. Personally, I appreciate a physical bass switch on IEMs. Ziigaat also mentioned that the dynamic driver in the Arete II is a new upgraded one. Other upgrades include better silicone tips and a modular cable too, but that's the same across all Ziigaat models. There's also a replaceable mesh for the nozzle in the new one, as opposed to the fixed metal mesh on the old one. The fit and isolation is very good. They feel slightly larger with the metal shells than other Ziigaat IEMs, and the nozzle looks slightly shorter. But it isn't an issue for me. The shells still feel very comfy. The heavier weight due to the metal shells also don't bother me, as they fit quite well in my ears. Let's pull up the graph of the Arete II. As you can see, it is tuned using the IEF curve as a reference. For the bass, we see a 5 dB boost when the switch is at the default position, and an 8 dB boost when the bass boost is on. That said, the bass boost switch provides about a plus 3 dB bass boost. The bass shelf gradually slopes down to around the 300 Hz region, and you can see the bass slightly bleeds into the mid-range with bass boost on, potentially causing muddiness in the mid-range. Then the tuning basically follows the IEF target, but at the treble region you can see that the peak at the pinna gain area is slightly trimmed off a few dBs to reduce fatigue or perceived clarity. If you consider the IEF target to be neutral, then the Arete II will appear slightly darker than neutral. The 10K and above area is pretty linear, which usually results in a more precise downstage presentation. The Arete II is rated to 40 kHz, so it is typical that you don't see a large roll-off in the 10K plus frequency range. Comparing the measurements with the old Arete, the new Arete basically has the same measurements up to the upper mid-range area, with the treble peak trimmed down by a few dBs on the new Arete. And the rise starting from the 1K region is a bit more gradual on the new one, which makes the new Arete sound darker and slightly less forward or present. Let's talk about my subjective thoughts on the Arete II. Similar to the Arete I, I find them very non-fatiguing and bassy in a good way. I really enjoy the amount of bass it has, even with the bass switch in the default position. Everything in the Arete II is very well laid out, very well controlled, but similar to the Arete I find it to be slightly lacking in the soundstage size. It just sounds a little more close up, especially when you compare it with other Ziigaat IEMs like the Horizon. Looking at the treble in the measurements, the new Arete, just like the old one, is quite preservative in the treble region. Even a little more preservative. It was probably an intentional tuning choice to reduce fatigue for long gaming sessions. as the Arete was also designed with gaming in mind. For the treble region, the attack from cymbals and instruments kind of are accented in a softer way or more gradually, which is something you might prefer for long listening sessions. Although the soundstage isn't particularly wide in the Arete II, imaging is very precise, and localization is also very good. Though it might not exactly sound holographic due to the stage size, it is very good in identifying which direction things are coming from. For the bass in the default position, I find it to be very quick, and it hits very deep. It hits a little more deeper from memory when compared to the original Arete. This might be due to the new generation dynamic driver. In position 2, I find the bass to sound slightly bloated and not as tight. It also bleeds a bit into the lower mids, but if you're listening to the Arete II on the go, I think you will appreciate the bass boost with environmental noises around you. Bass switches on IEMs are convenient, as how you perceive bass changes a lot depending on the environment. So a bass switch definitely is a plus for me, and it makes the Arete a lot more versatile in terms of usability combined with its very good passive isolation. I know this can be easily done in PEQ, but I much prefer the simplicity of flicking the switch. For the mid-range, it's very similar to the original Arete. It sounds very neutral, crisp, and detailed. There isn't any obvious coloration in the mid-range, and the position of the mid-range also sounds very neutral. It doesn't sound recessed or forward. Like how I described the original Arete, I think it's still true in the Arete II. A clinical and resolving studio monitor-like sound, which may also be referred to as slightly dry sounding to some. Even though there aren't any peaks or things that jump out to you on the Arete II, it still sounds very revealing and has good resolution in the mid-range. All in all, a very neutral presentation with good mid-range detail retrieval. Overall, I think it's a refinement from the old Arete, with deeper bass and a slightly smoother treble. Now let's see how it compares to other IEMs. For comparison, let's compare the Arete II to the Horizon. They do generally sound quite similar in the tonality, and measure quite similarly too. The thing I liked most in the Horizon was the soundstage size. It was large and holographic, probably top 1 or 2 in this price range. Compared to the Horizon, the Arete II doesn't have the same scale in the stage despite the precision in the imaging. Though the Arete II isn't bad by any means, it's simply not as good as the Horizon in this area. Though I do like the lower end of the Arete II more, not only does it have more bass, it also hits deeper than the Horizon. Plus, you also have the ability to physically adjust the bass with the switch. The bass on the Horizon, on the other hand, is a little tighter and quicker, but I prefer the bass depth and quantity on the Arete II. For the mid-range, the Horizon has a quicker and more aggressive attack in general, which can give you a sense of precision or excitement. It's great for critical listening, but it's also more fatiguing in some sense. The Arete II has a more mellow attack in the notes, which gives you an overall more relaxed listening experience. Though the Horizon has a sharper attack, I do not think it has more resolution in the mid-range, just a different presentation and sound. If I had to choose one of them based on its sound quality, it would be the Horizon. But if I had to choose one based on the overall package, it would be a tough task, as I feel the metal build and switch on the Arete makes it much more premium and versatile than the Horizon. When I first listened to the Arete II in bass mode, it actually reminded me of the Punch Audio Portazo that I recently reviewed. Pulling up the measurements, you'll probably see why. The Portazo is basically a more aggressive, V-shaped version of the Arete II. I will be comparing the Arete II with the bass switch on. Comparing the bass, I think the difference that stood out most is that the Portazo tends to be more boosted in the sub-bass region, and the Arete sounds to be boosted in the mid-bass more. So you get more of a thud or rumble in the Portazo, but you get more punch and attack in the bass in the Arete II. The overall presentation is also vastly different. The Portazo sounds more distant, and the sounds have a very good depth between you. The overall stage sounds bigger and deeper. The Arete sounds more direct and close up. You sound like you are just in front of a singer. You tend to hear more micro details and mid-range detail in the Arete II, but it also doesn't sound harsh. The Portazo, on the other hand, you get a better sense of soundstage, but sacrifices a little in the mid-range micro details. After reviewing the Arete II, I have no doubt that it is an improvement from the old Arete. It has a much nicer build, a better cable, and even an adjustable bass switch. If you like the old Arete, I'm confident that you'll like the new one too. The Arete II is a very good IEM. There's honestly not much I can nitpick on these with the improved build and stuff. The only thing that I wish was better is the soundstage size. Overall, it's a relaxed sounding IEM with good bass extension and imaging. They sound great for music, especially in bass tracks despite being a gaming IEM. The build is great. It is simply the nicest Ziigaat IEM yet in terms of build quality. So the Arete II is definitely recommended for those looking for a non-fatiguing bassy IEM. So this is the end of my review on the Arete II. I'm very curious to know if the upcoming Ziigaat IEMs will have a similar aluminum shell like the Arete II. I think it's a big step up from the 3D printed resin shells. Just feels and looks more substantial. Personally, I much prefer the new shells. I really hope they would keep this new direction in their future releases. Let me know what you think in the comments, if you prefer resin or metal shells. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.